Hello, BookTube. I thought we'd... Somebody wants to get down. Hold on a second. As I was saying, I thought we'd continue our library tour of the darkest shadows of Mordor. This wooden hutch here in the living room that is full of books. And I'm going to keep it short because, as unbelievable as it is for me to say, I actually have gone back to rationing my time out of air conditioning. I have one room that's air conditioned, and I have to ration my time outside of it because it's 90 degrees and 95% humidity in Boston. It's worse summer weather than anything we had during the actual summer. So I'm already drenched in sweat just standing here, and so after the shower, I'm going to go back into air conditioning. But I can't complain because the rest of the country has it a lot worse. That's been the refrain for the last 5 months. But New England right now is record-breaking heat and humidity. So, but it doesn't matter anyway because we're doing the transverse books right now to clear our path for the actual books on this shelf of this library tour. And the transverse books here are actually in little stacks, so it's fairly organic. So we'll start with the next transverse stack, and I'll just ignore the crushing heat and humidity until the video is over. So the first one is a Penguin classic from the UK. I had a friend going there, and he got me a copy of the Rumple and the Penge Bungalow Murders, which is a late John Mortimer novel that came out as a mass market in the UK, never came out as a mass market. They don't make mass markets for this sort of thing in America anymore. Came out as a trade paperback in America from Penguin and also a hardcover, and I think I have both of them in this apartment. But I like this just because it has the Penguin right on it, you know. And it's, of course, the story that Mortimer finally got around to writing. It was alluded to throughout the entire course of Rumple's fictional career. The Penge Bungalow Murders, the notorious crime that he solved at the beginning of his career alone and without a leader, and won in court, that gave him a small place in the legal who's who. So I have that. I have a mass market of it. I'm never going to read. So, then great murder mystery author, fantastic police procedural author that if you don't read, you really ought to give him a try. This is Philip Kerr's Bernie Gunther novels. This is Prague Fatale. They're novels about I hear something being gnawed. That's all right. They're novels about a down at his heels German police detective who's an ordinary decent guy caught in the Nazi mechanism, and you know he has a job. He solves crimes. But it's been infinitely complicated by the fact that his bosses now report to a crime syndicate, and the novels are really good about that. I was turned on to them by Open Letters Monthly's resident mystery Malvin, Irma Heldman, who raved about them for years, and I finally thought, you know, I remember I read Berlin Noir, which is the one-volume collection of the first 3 Bernie Gunther adventures, and I remembered I liked it. So I thought, well, you know, let me get the next book when it comes out and see if these are really as good as Irma says, and they were. They are. Then the next one, something we've seen on this channel before. This is James Roos-Eves' stage dramatization of 84 Charing Cross Road that I talked about in a video about that entire fictional entity. And then another one that we've seen on this channel before. This is Horace, Behind the Public Poetry. This is a study of the Roman poet Horace, and not his love poetry. It's a study of the official poetry that he wrote for the state, and what it says about him and what it says about the state. And I read it and thought it was fantastic. And then we have more Rumple. This is a paperback of Rumple Alucard. I think we saw Rumple Alucard in a hardcover. This is the trade paperback. It's just a collection of short stories, including the title story, in which Rumple defends Jean-Pierre O'Higgins, an imperious Michelin-rated chef who's you know, restaurant is the toast of London until a mouse is served up. and then all heck breaks loose, and he has to fend for his reputation, and Rumple has to defend him. And there are many stories in here that are just as good. This is a wonderful collection. Then another wonderful collection. This is the Library of America volume of John O'Hara's short stories. This is, of course, 1/100th of the number of short stories that he wrote in his career. He wrote short stories all the time for decades. And I don't know, the fact that Library of America has just stories on here instead of a date leads me to think they're not going to do any others. He would have loved the fact that his work is finally commemorated in the more or less official American canon reprint series. But I think he'd probably bridled, and I do too, that so few of his stories are in here. But that's all right. That's okay. Better something than nothing. And maybe this is a toe in the door for Library of America to start reprinting his novels, which would be wonderful. I of course, strongly recommend him. We'll just move on. Next one is a novel. I don't remember if this is a debut novel or not. It's David Aeneas on Earth as It Is in Heaven, which is a coming of age novel about a young boxer, and it came out in 2014, and I just loved it. I put it on the appropriate Steve Reads list at the end of the year, and got rid of the advanced copy and just sort of waited to find it again in a hardcover. And then when I got the hardcover, it did not have this cover, which, you know, on many different levels is a fantastic cover. So I basically got another advanced copy from the publisher, and this one I'll just hold on to it. And it, of course, is gone. Right? This is the question that I have with so many contemporary novels that show up. They're here. They get maybe 5 or 6 critics to write about them if they're lucky, and then they completely disappear. And what happens to them? I don't know what happens to them. What happens to, what was the book? The Madonna of the Moon? What happens to On Earth as It Is in Heaven? What happens to half the contemporary novels that I talk about on this channel that show up? They're really, really good. They deserve more years of readership, not just one season of readership. And do they get it? I don't know. I don't have any idea. There's a study to be done there. There's a series of articles to be done there on what happens to these things. But in any case, I strongly recommend it. It's very, very good. It's also especially good if you like boxing. Let's see what the next one is special. Well, these are all special. But the next one is J.G. Hayes. This is a collection of short stories as well called This Thing Called Courage, which is short stories set in South Boston, which, for those of you who don't know, used to be, it's gentrified now, but for a long time it was a working class Irish neighborhood that was brutally masculine, brutally raw, also wonderful in many, many ways. There were dance halls, there was an enormous amount of charity from house to house, from street to street, from family to family. It was a wonderful world, but it was, much like Little Italy or Hell's Kitchen at a certain point in New York history, it was the very last place in the world, in America, it was the very last place in America that you wanted to be gay. Until relatively the present day, it was unthinkable. It was the male side of Southie was an incredibly masculine society, much like Sicily, where it was unthinkable. And this story is all about young men caught in the grip of that, and some of these stories are wonderful. And this author's gone on to do a couple of other things, but I keep waiting for the big, huge breakout novel that I haven't even checked recently to see if the author is still alive. But if he is, I'm really hoping that in his spare time he's working on that big, great novel, because I would love to read it. But in the meantime, I don't know how common it will be to see this book in used bookstores outside of Boston, but if you do, and it interests you, This Thing Called Courage is really worth reading. And that brings us to the last one. This is a Norton Critical Edition. We've talked about Norton Critical Editions on this channel before. They are editions that have the primary text at the beginning of the book, and then critical reception at the back. History's original source material and critical essays. They're wonderful. They can be an education just in your hand. They're really worth having. And this one is classic fairy tales with a Maxfield Parrish cover that is just a beautiful Maxfield Parrish cover. This is edited by Maria Tatar, and it's just that. It's the folks at Norton sent it to me, and I read it, and I read all the essays. The essays are fantastic, really well chosen stuff. And then it's just sat here. And that is it. That is the next the transverse book pile for the library tour of Mordor. So let me find the Dark One herself. We're going to sign off and cool off. There you go. There you go. Oh, say hi to the camera. No, don't try and bite my nose. Say hi to the camera. She's all about the biting. So, we're gonna go, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.